welcome everybody to this data talks today. We are joined by Mart Mägi, who is the Director General of Statistics Estonia. And we will talk about Tree of Truth today, which is a monitoring dashboard developed by Statistics Estonia. The governmental agency operates at the intersection of administration and the Ministry of Finance and tries to provide reliable and up-to-date statistics for the country, not only to use by public administrations, but also citizens and individuals. And one of their efforts in this regard is the Tree of Truth, the dashboard that we will talk about today. Mart, I will give the floor to you in a minute. You can introduce the project and we can do questions in between. To the audience, I would like to point out that at the end of the session, we do a dedicated Q&A. But if you have questions in the meantime, please type your question in chat or raise your hand and we can address them in between. Also, please keep yourself muted. And on a general note, the session is recorded and will be on our YouTube channel afterwards, but I will mention more about this at the end. That's it for my part. Mart, I would like to give the floor to you.
Hello, everyone. So really pleasure to be here in a podcast. So please, all the questions which are related to the topic or the statistics in general, I'm happy to answer those at the end of my presentation. So let me give a kind of short presentation about the Tree of Truth, what it is, and why we have been developing a dashboards for our cabinet, but nevertheless to the citizens and to the parliament. And I will start with a bit of background story. And the background story goes back to approximately 3 years. When I was appointed as the chief statistician in Estonia 3 years ago, first of my mission was to give a comprehensive overview of the SDGs in Estonian Parliament House. When I went to the event itself in the end of 2017, which was in a big room in a Parliament House, and we was expecting to see the members of the Parliament, the members of the cabinet, and also the different experts on SDGs. We saw very little of them in this particular room. So that was a huge challenge for us as a starting point. I mean, the key indicators, which are basically established by the government and approved by the Parliament, the SDGs, but not only the SDGs, we have also our own strategic plans. Even we was giving a comprehensive overview of what is the situation in Estonia, we didn't see particular people watching or even listening there. So that was starting point for us, and we decided something to be changed. And of course, I mean, looking across the globe, the situation also in Estonia, in terms of the politicians, was not on a, I would say, favorite position to show what are the real results of the economy and the social affairs. So the situation in Estonia was very, demanding. We have altogether 47 development plans. That's a huge number. And if you look the different indicators in those, we can count those not in hundreds, but almost in thousands. And that's not in Estonia. If you look at the EU in general, or if you look at the global level, we have a lot of indicators. The question is, what are the most relevant to them? We have, at least in Estonia, stated that there is 3 development plans which is most crucial for the country. They are sustainable development. There is Estonia 2035 development plan, and also, of course, every government have established their own action plan for a very short period. So we can see also in a time frame that we have a very short time frame plan, like a government action. The midterm is 2035, and sustainable development is basically ongoing all the time, because we want the SDGs to be the crucial element of our development. Estonia also have developed quite a good and comprehensive overview of the budgeting. And the budgeting is based on the activity-based costing and also activity-based budgeting itself. Though the performance areas and the state budget are very interlinked with each other. So it's very important to see what are the key indicators, what we are financing, and what are the results out of it. Still, looking on this situation, what we have saw is the number of indicators is really huge. It's once again, it's not the hundreds, it's really thousands of indicators what we see. Therefore, in our own, Statistics Estonia development plan, we have been taking a very clear approach. The indicators which are relevant to specific policymakers should be on their table on a proper time. So that's not only the indicators what we are providing, but the indicators which are provided from the other owners, the other registers or other sources. Estonia in a favored position, the statistics itself is basically fully centralized. So we are producing the most of the indicators across different development plans. We have, of course, to the other statistical office or the statistical provider, like a central bank, but we don't have any other owners. Still, we have the many different sources from where you can get the specific indicators for a personalized dashboards. So what we have done, we have taken this information from the other sources and from our own sources and provided the different dashboards to the different trade unions, the local government and the central government. That was a very first step, I would say, because this step was something where we wanted to get the clear and better understanding and also the discussion between the different parties like the trade unions, local government and the central government to harmonize the meaning of indicators and that they are using the same indicators across different fields of expertise. Of course, that's not getting us still to the position or the key indicators. So we decided also to develop a comprehensive overview for the government and for the parliament so that they can easily and very simply understand where the Estonia stands. Now I should tell you another story. The other story comes from Finland. I had a very nice interview or discussion with a previous parliament member of the in Finland. And he told me that, Mart, you are most stupidest person in the world. He didn't know any politician who wants to get a very clear and picture what is the real situation. The data is needed for politicians only then when they have come up with something in their mind and they want to just to fix the decision what they have already made in their mind. But nevertheless, we decided we go forward. We go forward and we really show what are the situation in Estonia. A bit different way than we have done so far. And it's very important to understand why we do it. So it's also to get the attention of every single citizen in Estonia that what is really happening and are we spending our limited resources on the right things to do or not. So going forward, let me show you some of the sketches. When we started the development of this dashboard, we had a really different views on it. We took, of course, examples also across the globe. There wasn't a lot of those. So the OECD have one dashboard, which is very visualized as well. But nevertheless, we was looking something where we can really show the different time frames of the indicators. Also, something to show in a different so-called policy-making areas. And on the same time, it should be really something which is going to the heart of the citizens. So you see a different sketches, what we developed, and we came up with a tree The first thing what we of course thought about was why tree. I mean, it's tree, and then we in a Scandinavian Muns is a tree of life. So we took a couple of, or the part of it also in our thing, but also the tree symbolized Estonian national tree, and the national tree of Estonia is oak. The question was, of course, why we called our tree not a statistical oak or statistical tree, but we call it tree of truth. It's also have been had a kind of discussion in Estonian news and also in a political area, what and how it can be a tree of truth. But what we see, the figures normally show the truth. Nevertheless, what is the story or discussions around it? So we developed these dashboards so that it's very easy to see what is really situation in Estonia. So what you see, that's a tree of truth. You can go and visit yourself in a web. It's quite interactive. We did it together with Estonian local visualization kind of organization, Optimist Creative, and it was developed in a couple of phases. Now we just launched the 2.0, and it's always developing further because, for example, also in a current stage, you don't see the figures or the indicators from the government plan because we just had a shift of the government, and that is not established new indicators yet from the government for the 4 years or 2 years because it's now getting a 2 years period. So what you see in our dashboard is the layers, that's different strategical plans. So you can see there is a small interaction when I turn this one. So when you see all the leaves, if you just select one strategic layer like SDGs, you see only the SDG indicators. Also, you see branches. Branches are the performance areas where the government is active and have been in established different development plans. Leaves are the particular indicators, and the indicators we have used easy metaphor using 3 colors: green, yellow, and red, showing that the green is something where basically the development is going to the right direction and or it's already above the targeted level. The yellow is something where it's either not met the strategic level or the direction is shifted. And the red ones, of course, is the hardest one, where the direction may be wrong. And of course, it's not met the targeted levels. The launch of our dashboard was in the end of 2019, International Statistics Day, of course. That was very big event in Estonia. We had also our president launching it, saying a very clear and very argumented words about the Tree of Truth. The Tree of Truth also has been nominated the Clear Message Award in 2020. It's used now widely in Estonian schools, and not only schools, across also different ministries, in discussions of the different development plans, and also now in setting up the new governmental plan for the next phase. It's very easy to follow once again, and it brings up a much more easier discussion to get the understanding what is really relevant to Estonia and what we need to aim to get there as well. Let me just finalize with a small presentation with our Prime Minister, the previous Prime Minister now, but he was giving a speech about the Tree of Truth in a high-level political forum in UN. So just small introduction of it. I hope you.
I don't know if it's me, but I can't hear the sound.
All right. At least you see the wording downstairs, or the subtitles?
Yes, the video is playing it with subtitles, yes.
Yes, as you don't hear the voice, so I can share the presentation later on. You can easily click and see what he is talking. But basically, as you see, the both government, now the parliament, have been taking more seriously the key indicators of the Estonia. The key indicators like SDGs, the National Development Plan, and also, as I mentioned, the government action plan. It's not enough. What we are doing currently is every single leaf, when we are producing it from the statistical office, whenever we are giving out the information publicly, we also referring to the tree of truth. It's very important that the citizens will understand what are those key indicators and what is the direction or how we met targets of those indicators. So what we do, we really make stories around the different leaves, because the dashboard itself is not in this term. So it's more kind of how we are providing it to the public space. That's a very kind of small and short story of our dashboard. I'm more than happy to have an open discussion. So please ask freely the questions, and I hope there is a questions already in a chat. I will shut down the presentation now so I can see maybe the chat room as well.
Yeah, thank you for this introduction. I think it's a beautiful tool to show, well, in one simple overview, pretty much how the country is doing and which progress is being made in which areas. It's very nice it's in one overview, and also for people who have no real feeling with the data, it's way easier to look at this than to look it up in a database, for example, or look at the web for it. I was wondering if you are aware of any sort of initiatives, like civil society initiatives or citizen uptake of this, because it's used for policymakers. You mentioned that, but is it also used on a more well, on a citizen level?
It's really used on a citizen level. Once again, it's used now quite widely in schools, teaching in classes what is the kind of government of Estonia or the state of Estonia. So how we are really operating, what is the role of the government, parliament, etc. But also what are the key indicators of Estonia, what the Estonia wants to achieve within a couple of years.
Gianfranco, you raised your hand. Go ahead.
Thank you. Mart, thanks a lot for being with us today and for your presentation. I got in love with the Tree of Truth the moment I learned about it on the Open Data Maturity Report written by the team I belong to here in the call, because it's there are many examples of interactive visualization of data to make it more accessible or easier to digest to citizens and civil servants, but I don't think I ever saw something that organically put together, say, the data you start from, the objective, and where you are at in terms of achieving those objectives. So even just for that, hats off to you and your team for this. My question is related to, well, we know already that Estonia is very well advanced in digital. You're famous in Europe, so I won't insist too much on that further. But would you say that the Tree of Truth is also a further tool in your toolbox to help your citizens feeling more comfortable with digital and data? And you said already how you're using it in schools. Do you know if adults are reacting well to the tool? What feedback have you got after launching, and are they getting closer to your work in statistics as well?
Yeah, I mean, to the closer to the citizens, of course, we had very interesting discussions now in terms of the local governments, like counties or whichever the local government are in a different countries. So we have been thinking about, should we build up a forest? Because every single county is also having their own indicators, which are really crucial. And once again, the different bounds, like we call those, I mean, there is a very different areas, like a social security, the kind of education, the health, the economy itself. I mean, they are the most important bounds in this term. So, and if you look at also on the local government side, I mean, they also have a very important roles. So that's something what we are developing currently as a discussion or ongoing discussions with the local counties now. So there is a huge interest in terms of building really a small trees, I would say, and all together as like a forest in this. And also we had a discussion really with the Finland, because they are also love this type of metaphor like a tree, and they have their own national tree. So every single country normally have their own kind of plant in these terms. Is it a tree or different plants? So it's very easy to adapt to the local situation. So it's still close to the heart of the citizen, I would say.
And actually, as you were talking about the forest, I was thinking also of local administration. So Estonia perhaps is a relatively small country, but for the civil servants in the room, who perhaps don't need much larger countries, see layers of government, you can easily imagine each, say, region of Italy, like in my case, having their own tree, and in a way igniting some degree of positive competition. Yeah, my tree is more green than yours, you know. I like to imagine that idea. Thanks, Mart.
I think from a setting up perspective, it's quite hard also to get all of those indicators and measure it on one level, right? We've talked about how it works pretty much, but is there what do you encounter in terms of difficulties? Because I can imagine, especially for SDGs, it's pretty hard to measure them on a standardized in a standardized way and visualize it all in one overview. So what do you run into there?
Yes, once again, I mean, the full visualization is run on our own open database. So basically, it's linked with the database. So if you go to the visualization tool, you see very easily, if you click to the leaf, you can go down and then you see you can get kind of a linkage to our own database. So you can really go deeper and deeper, and you can study more deeply what does it means, etc., etc. The problems, of course, are always with the statisticians that how we can really produce those indicators on a more timely manner. So it's not only a yearly base, or it's not only kind of looking at 2 years back. So we want to do those indicators more kind of on a more frequent base, I would say. So we have been really now also in times of the pandemic developing the indicators which are on a weekly base, like a deaths or something like those. So it's very important that also in the future we try to really monitor those indicators on a very high frequency. So that's something what we are definitely want to provide even more often.
And Mart, you've been talking about homogenizing the performance indices or the measures you've been taking. How, sorry to make this question, but how hard was that? Because I'm afraid it may have been quite a challenge, and it's not something that just Estonia has. I mean, across all of Europe, continuously we measure how we perform on against many social economical dimensions, and I'm not sure that yet we got to a point where we can comfortably exchange data because we are measuring different things, right?
Yeah, that's true, but in at least on a European level, what we can say that yes, the most of indicators also on a tree of truth, they are harmonized. So at least the indicator itself and how it's showing. Sometimes the data we're getting from the different sources, like we in Scandinavia, I will say, we are using more the register-based data, and the southern countries are using more survey-based data, of course. But still, the final outcome itself is comparable, and that's we have been developed across the Europe together, all the national statistical offices together with the Eurostat. So the most of the indicators you see in a tree is also similar to the other countries. So that's very easy part. Now, if you come to the other part is how to really harmonize the indicators. I can say you not on the tree of truth, but the other what I showed you as well, the dashboards. We had a very interesting harmonization in a tourism sector, because we have a trade union like a tourism, and also the local counties and also the central government are very interested in what is the situation with the tourism. So we got together all the different counterparties and we asked very simple question: do you see any indicators what we are not producing yet? They came up with 400 indicators. After we went through our database, honestly, we finally got to the situation that out of the 400, we was producing 300, but the definition was not clear to them. So it's always question, are we speaking the same language? And the statisticians normally, I mean, they like to put a very comprehensive names to the indicators, etc. But we need to simplify it well, because people don't understand. And out, by the way, from those 100 which left, we also had one question. If we produce it, could you tell us for what purposes you are using particular indicators? What decisions you are really making based on this indicator? And we got out of this 100 only 10 which is left out. So basically we are going to produce those 10. But you see that normally, I mean, people like to have more information, but by the end of the day, are you using those? Are they really relevant? And what we need to do for really providing those? I mean, that's different story than this.
Thank you.
I see there's a question in the chat from Beatrice. Go ahead.
Yes, hello, this is Beatrice Fernandez from the EU Publications Office. Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation, Matt. I have two questions. One is about the dashboard and another one about the process. So on the dashboard, and maybe it's because I joined a little bit after your presentation started, how do you represent the actual trend over time in the evolution of each indicator? And how do you measure, how do you visualize the gap towards the goal? So for every leaf, for every indicator. And then I have a second question.
Yes, there is also a small explanation when you go to the tree of truth itself, and you put the so-called help mark, so you can see the small introduction, how it's measured. But I can show you, yes, normally what we do, we're measuring it so that we are comparing the indicators with the last situation. So if we are producing, for example, indicators for 2020, what is the situation was in 2019? That gives a direction. Is it going a better way or the worst way? And the second one, of course, we have not for all goals, but in the most of case, and that particularly comes, of course, for the Estonian national plan and the government plan. We have a strategic level where the government wants to achieve. In terms of now the SDGs, it's more complicated because on the SDGs, the government have sometimes not put it any target itself. So what we are comparing is we're comparing to the EU level. Are we above the EU level or the average now or not? Or if it's not also applicable, then we're measuring only the direction of the particular indicator. Therefore, it's sometimes it's hard to recognize, and that's particularly comes to the SDGs. In terms of the national plan and the government plan, it's very simple. It's are the target met and what is the direction. That gives also the color for the particular leaf.
Okay, thank you. And the second question on the process itself, how much time did it took to develop the design, the concept? And related to this, how do you think that this great dashboard could be replicable, actionable in other members? And also at European level, like, for example, imagine that we want to have something like this at EU level. Could we count on the expertise of Statistics Estonia to learn from this best practice? Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Once again, it's very simple solution. And it all together, it took us from the, of course, it took bit time when we really developed the sketches itself, like I showed you. And that was purely on a paper. So we didn't do anything in a computer side. So we just think about how we can really show so comprehensive picture to everyone. And I would say it took almost most of the time. So the visualization kind of sketches took us around 3 months. And the particular work with developing the dashboard took us only 2.5 months. So incredible short time. And also in terms of the price, I can't say the price tag, but it's unbelievable. Basically, it's free of charge. Now, how it's also, if you see about how it can be leveraged, the data which is used in particular visualization tool is all via the APIs from our open database. So as I know that all the statistical offices, for example, and not only statistical offices, or ONAS, the Eurostat, everyone is using the open database where you can really draw the data based on the APIs. So this visualization tool is very simple to leverage to every single such a database. Its more question is how many leaves you want and what are the bounces, because that's depends on the different countries. And also, like we discussed here, it depends, are it for a central government or for the local government.
Great. Thank you very much.
But you can count on us, so we can really definitely we can help. But that's as we don't have any competition. I mean, across Europe, we are working in Estonia, so we're more than happy to really support the other countries here on developing such kind of tools. Definitely.
We're glad to hear that. Thank you very much.
I don't see any questions in the chat, so I'm gonna take this opportunity to ask a question myself. I think you already highlighted it a bit, but what do you see going forward for Tree of Truth? Is the next thing going to be Forest of Truth, or is there something else?
Good that you asked this one, because we really have a lot of ideas how to develop it further. Because one is you saw that it's just a simple tree from looking from the side of the tree. Now our first idea is now to develop the tree when you look on a tree from above of the tree. And what you see from the above of the tree is basically a circle of different leaves. And why it's very important, if you think about the indicators, like GDP, when the GDP arises, what are the other leaves which are really affected by this particular leaf? So that's very kind of fascinating story. I mean, how the different leaves are interlinked with each other. And for example, when the poverty drops, I mean, what are the other indicators what are getting better as well? Or for example, when the education is really getting better, or the health data is getting better. So what are the other leaves what are really getting green as well, I would say. So it's very important to get really understanding cross dependencies across the different leaves. That's one thing what we are going to develop. And the second one, what we have also had a kind of very interesting discussions, if what is the beneath of the tree? So what is the source of the tree? So okay. We had a couple of different discussions. So that is now I would say two groups, and one group want to develop it like a taxes. What taxes the government are collecting? So it goes to the so-called like blood in a veins. So basically, what are the sources or the taxes or different taxes itself, and how it's now gives a kind of power to the tree. But there is another group of this kind of who wants that in beneath of the tree, how you call it in English, but it's the lower part of it. So it's maybe the legislation And if you change in a legislation something, how it's kind of does it the change of legislation somehow affects to the color of the leaf as well or not? It's more hard to, of course, to develop this one, but it's still possible. It's still possible because also the change of legislation can be measured in this term. So it's very, very interesting development plans what we have, the future of it. And of course, on a separate side, of course, we are thinking about really the forestry and how we really can have it's a much more visualization in the local counties. So that's those are different ideas, and I really hope that we can release 2.0 within 1 year. So, but it's once again it's now getting harder. I mean, once again, the first aim was to give a comprehensive view, a very simplified way, so that the school people and the politician, I mean, they both understand it on the same way, and that's most important.
Exactly. Yeah. But it seems like beautiful initiatives. If you could visualize the process in that way, yeah, we'd be very happy to see it. We'll stay tuned for that. I would like to point out to the audience that I think we're going to wrap up, unless there's anything else you want to address, Mart, that we haven't touched upon.
It was really a pleasure to give this kind of podcast on our Independence Day, like I mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. So it's really fun. Really, thank you all of you, and I once again we are more than help if we can support you, and just please write us email or put a chat. So always happy to support.
Yeah, on our side we're total fans of this initiative. So thank you so much for showcasing it today.
Thank you.
I would like to point out to the audience that we have a short 2-minute survey that we kindly ask you to fill out so that we can tailor these sessions more to your needs. I will put the link in the chat now. And also, as this is one episode of a series of data talks, I would like to announce the next 2 data talks that we have coming up. I'll share my screen for that. So next week we are joined by Antonin Garand from EtaLab, who will discuss some of the insights from the French Open Data Portal. And the week after that, on the 10th of March, we are joined by Alvaro Rodriguez, who is from EMT Madrid, which is the National Transport Agency, and he will discuss some of his insights on e-mobility. If you want to register for that and stay tuned, please follow us on Instagram, either EU Data Portal or EU Data Sharing. That is it from my side. Mart, I would like to thank you again so much for being here today with us. It was very nice to have you. And I would like to say goodbye to the audience and hope you see you soon.
Thank you. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.